Good day, everyone, and welcome to this class. So, we are going to continue our discussion on the constitutional development of Nigeria, starting with the 1979 Presidential Constitution. Okay, so a brief background to this constitution. In 1966, Nigeria had a military regime. What that means is that soldiers took over power and were ruling over the country. And that happened until in 1976 this man, another is a soldier too, he removed the previous military regime. That is, he took over power himself. He decided that he was going to become the Nigerian head of state. Under military regimes, those that rule the country are called heads of state. So this is Murtala Mohammed. He came to power as Nigerian head of state in 1975, and this was his second in command. His name is Olusegun Obasanjo. But unfortunately, in 1976, the next year after Murtala Mohammed took over power, he was killed in an attempted coup. This was the vehicle he was inside then as the head of state of Nigeria. You can still see some bullets markings on the vehicle. So he was killed in an attempted coup. That is, another group of soldiers wanted to take over power from him. But when he was killed in the process. But unfortunately, his second in command, Olusegun Obasanjo, was able to stop the coup plotters, those that killed him, and he had them arrested. So when Murtala Mohammed died, Olusegun Obasanjo now became the new head of state in Nigeria. So that happened in 1976. So in 1978, Olusegun Obasanjo now said that he was going to return Nigeria back to a democratic rule, where we'll have elected leaders instead of soldiers that are not elected. They just killed people and took over power. So in 1978, Olusegun Obasanjo now made arrangements to return Nigeria to a democratic system of government. He did that by making the 1979 Second Republican Constitution. You see, we are saying Second Republican Constitution because our first Republican Constitution was in 1963. Okay, remember we said a republic is a system of government in which all leaders in the country are elected. So the first time all the leaders in Nigeria were elected was in 1963, and then the second time that happened was in 1979, which is why we call this constitution the 1979 Second Republican Constitution. So let's talk about the features of the constitution. Number one, we have the fact that the constitution adopted a presidential system of government. Remember, we said a presidential system of government is a system of government in which you have just one leader in the country. That's one person being head of state and one person being head of government. It is opposed to the parliamentary system of government in which you have two leaders, just like you have here. One person is the president, or for instance, or the king. For instance, as they have in England, the king is the head of state. In a country like India, you have a president as the head of state. Some other countries, you may have emirs, you may have sultan, you may have queen, and so on and so forth. And then the prime minister serves as the head of government. So it's a system where you have two leaders ruling over the country is parliamentary, but where you have one leader ruling, occupying both the office of the head of state and head of government, it is known as presidential. So the first time that was introduced in Nigeria was under the 1979 constitution. Okay, now another feature of that constitution was that a multi-party system was introduced in the country. Multi-party system is simply a system in which you have many political parties. So basically, we have three main types of party systems. We have the one party system. That's in that country you have just one political party. You have two party system. You have just two political parties in that country. For instance, in the US, only two political parties are dominating affairs. And then when you have many political parties, that's over three political parties, it means the system you're operating is a multi-party system. So Nigeria started to operate this system in 1979. Another feature of that constitution is that the constitution introduced what is known as recall. Recall is simply a process whereby a legislator, for instance, a senator, a member of House of Reps, can be removed from that office if he or she is not doing what the people want. How is this done? For instance, now if okay, let me use myself as an example. I'm from Akwa Ibom State, and let's say the senator that is representing my area in Akwa Ibom. Okay, you know that each state is represented by 3 senators. So let's say one senator represents like 3 local governments. So let's assume now the senator that is representing the 3 local governments in my state, if we are no longer happy with the senator, all of us in that 3 local governments will go to INEC, will tell INEC that we want to remove this person as our senator. So INEC will give us a form to fill. If we fill that form, and then we have about 1 million people that signed the form that we want to remove our senator, INEC will now check the election results and see how many votes did the person use to win the election to become a senator. If it was by 1 million votes, it means that the person will be removed from office. So that whole process is what is known as recall. And the first time we had it in Nigeria was in 1979. Another very important feature of that constitution. Now, another feature is that the constitution introduced what is known as the federal character principle. And the federal character principle is simply a practice in which whoever becomes president of Nigeria will have to select his political appointments from all the states of the federation. So, for instance, let's assume now someone becomes the president of Nigeria today, like Tinubu, that is the president of Nigeria. He is bound to follow this federal character principle. What that means is that he has to select a minister from all the states in Nigeria. He will go to Borno, select one. Yobe will select one. Go to Kaduna, select one. Delta, select one. Benue State, select one minister. So all the states in Nigeria must have at least one minister. Now, the process of doing that is what is known as the federal character, and that is done to ensure fairness in all political appointments in Nigeria. So that was also introduced for the first time in 1979. Now, there were provisions for an independent judiciary and range of fundamental human rights for Nigerian citizens, meaning that the judiciary was made to be free from other organs of government, and then the citizens were also allowed to enjoy their fundamental rights and liberties. So these were the features of this constitution. Let's talk about the advantages and the disadvantages. Now, this man here, because of the fact that we adopted a presidential system of government, this is Shehu Shagari. So Shehu Shagari became the first executive president of Nigeria. Now, the first feature here is that the multi-party system gave the electorate more choice in voting. So this is an advantage in the sense that operating a multi-party system, you are given more options on who to vote for. Like in 1979, due to the multi-party system that was introduced, we had about 5 political parties in the country. So the citizens were free to choose whichever party they wanted to vote for in the election. Now, another merit of that constitution was that the constitution gave a requirement for anybody that wanted to take part in politics. For instance, for you to be allowed to vote, you must have attained the age of 18, and then for you to maybe contest for the office of the president, you must be at least minimum of 31 years old. Now, that's made it possible for only those that are matured to contest for political positions. And then there was also the fact that the constitution allowed local government to have more power and authority to carry out her activities. Okay, that's what we mean by greater prominence made for local government. So because they could govern themselves, they could quickly make decisions to bring about the development of their local government. Another very important point, this federal character, I've already explained it. So it's an advantage because it helped to ensure fairness among all the states, because each state will produce equal number of ministers. And then the citizens also were allowed to enjoy their rights, which is another very important feature of that constitution. That the demerit. Now look at this. It says part-time status and allowance were given to legislators, made them concentrate more on their private businesses than lawmaking. What it means is that those that were appointed to become legislators could be doing it on a part-time basis. For instance, now you can be working in, let's say, you can be working as a legislator or as a senator, and then also be working as the manager of a bank. You see, now that kind of situation means that the person will not concentrate in doing his job as a manager very, very well, because he's working in two different places. Okay, so that was a disadvantage of the constitution. So this was stopped after 1979. If you wanted to be a senator or a legislator, you must do it full time, not part time. And then the multi-party system sometimes created confusion for electorate because of there are many alternatives for people to vote. Sometimes people can be confused, who do I vote for, which party do I vote for. That can bring confusion. Unlike a system where you have just two political parties, it means either you vote for this one or you vote for the other political party. Another demerit of this constitution was that it was too rigid and difficult. The rigid simply means to change anything in it was very, very difficult. You needed to follow a lot of processes to change anything in the constitution. The constitution also centralized the judiciary. It means that the constitution made the judiciary, everything that had to do with the judiciary was controlled by just one person, who was the Chief Justice of the Federation. So this goes contrary to the arrangement of federalism, in which each state should be allowed to decide what they want for their judicial system. Okay, so this was also a disadvantage. The constitution also vested too much power in the federal government. The federal government became too powerful to the detriment of the various states government that we had in Nigeria at the time. So this is that for the 1979 constitution. Moving on. The next constitution is the 1989 constitution. Now this one is very, very brief. You see, this man here is his name is Ibrahim Babangida. Ibrahim Babangida actually came to power through a coup d'etat. He's a soldier man, of course. He took over power again. It means that Nigeria was no longer practicing a democratic system of government. So when Ibrahim Babangida took over power, he actually took over power in 1985. The person that was Shehu Shagari, that was the elected president. This man was the elected president in 1979. So he ruled until 1983 before soldiers came again and took over power. When they took over power, that was they ruled until 1989. In 1989, this man, Brian Babangida, said he was going to return Nigeria back to a democracy. So he introduced a new constitution, just like how it happened in 1979. So that new constitution was called the 1989 Presidential Constitution. So these features were very, very similar to that of 1979. The only major difference was that the constitution introduced a two-party system instead of the multi-party system. So in 1979, we had a multi-party system, meaning we had more than 3 political parties in Nigeria. We had about 5 political parties. So that's a multi-party system. But in two-party system, you have just 2 political parties in the country. So that was the major feature of this constitution. So let's read. The constitution retained a presidential system of government as in 1979. A two-party system was entrenched. So this is the major difference between 1979 and 1989. This is two-party system. Now the people could withdraw any legislature. So this process of recall, remember, it was also a feature under 1979. Now, okay. It was also in this constitution that Abuja was actually recognized as the federal capital of Nigeria. Okay, so this is another different feature. Okay, Abuja became the federal capital under this 1989 constitution. And then this one also was there. It was independence of the judiciary and fundamental human rights, just like in 1979. So these are just the two differences: the two-party system and the federal capital. So these are the difference between 1979 and 1989 constitution. So what are the merits and demerits of that constitution? Okay, the two-party system, of course, it reduced confusion unlike multi-party system, so that's an advantage, even though it has the disadvantage of limiting people's choice. Look at it, it's written here. Two-party system limits choice. That means people are not allowed to vote for more people as they would have wanted to, or as it is obtainable under the multi-party system. Okay, and then the minimum qualification, this one also there, like in 1979, they also stipulated the age. For instance, you must be 30 something before you can contest for a senator or to become president. And then this prominence of local government was also in 1979. So this constitution is often referred to as the 1989 aborted constitution because it was never used. Before this constitution could be implemented, the election that were conducted to usher in the new president was cancelled, and this was the person that would have won that election. His name is MK Abiola. He's the reason why we have Democracy Day, June 12. So his election was cancelled. It was said that the election that were conducted was the freest and fairest ever in Nigeria. So, but MK Abiola, before he could become president and start ruling, another military man took over power and started ruling the country. Then, as that happened, MK Abiola now declared himself president. Because he declared himself president, he was arrested and taken to prison, and eventually he died in 1998. So, moving on, this man here was one that took over power in that 1993, June 12. He cancelled he decided to, as a military man, to cancel to start ruling illegally instead of allowing MK Abiola to rule as the elected president. If you look at this picture, this is your current president. This is President Tinubu. So you see, he has always been in the corridors of power for a long time. This is Sani Abacha. So Sani Abacha started ruling from that 1993, when he would have handed over power to MK Abiola. He started ruling until 1998, when he died. When he died, another person became the head of state. His name was Abdulsalami Abubakar, this man. So this man now decided to conduct elections and return Nigeria back to a democratic rule, which was what led to the introduction of the present constitution that we're using today, the 1999 Fourth Republican Constitution. We say it's the Fourth Republican Constitution because this was now the fourth time Nigeria attempted to elect her leaders into offices. So, which is the current constitution we're using now. So this man Abdulsalam Abubakar introduced this constitution. He also organized the election, and the winner of that election was Olusegun Obasanjo. Remember, Olusegun Obasanjo had ruled in 1976, so he came back again to contest elections. This time he was not as a military ruler, as a private citizen. He contested elections, and eventually he won that election and became Nigeria's second executive president after Shehu Shagari. So these are the features of the 1999 Constitution. The features are very similar to the 1979 Constitution in the sense that we still maintain the multi-party system, maintain the presidential system of government, and this feature here is also introduced bicameral legislature. Remember, we said bicameral legislature is where you have two chambers of lawmaking bodies. So this was also a feature of the 1999 Constitution, our present Constitution. Now, for you to contest into national and state position, it was now reduced that it was now stated that you must have secondary school certificate. That is, you must have gotten your WAEC certification before you can contest. Okay, and then the constitution also provides for 74 local governments. So the constitution now recognized 36 states for the first time in Nigeria history, and 774 local government areas. And then the constitution also stated different ways to raise money, revenue allocation formula. That is the different methods to share money among the different states in Nigeria. That is, some states should receive money because they are more populated. Some states should receive money because of maybe something like terrorism, like Borno State now receive money. So, and then there's also the issue of derivation, where a particular resource is gotten from, that state should receive more money from that resource. So these are the features of that constitution. How about the merits? Now, the same presidential system that we talked about was also there. So the merits are similar to the merits of 1979 constitution. The constitution ushered in both the Fourth Republic and the presidential system of government. It made provision for minimal education, meaning that you must have at least WAEC certificate before you can contest for any political position. And then there's also room for greater political development at the grassroots, because there were more local government, over 774 local government. And then it also allowed for smooth transfer of power from military to civilian regime. And then citizens also enjoyed their rights. This is Abdulsalami Abubakar. What are the merit, the disadvantage of this constitution? Number one, of course, since it was made by Abdulsalami Abubakar, who was a military man, it was imposed, meaning that the military imposed the constitution, whereas it should have been something that all Nigerians agreed that this is what we want. No, that was not the case. It was just the military that decided to make this constitution and impose it upon Nigeria. Another demerit was that the constitution was rigid, meaning it was very, very difficult to change anything in it. Alright, so unlike the constitution should be easily to change. Although there are advantages to it, these are some of the merits of a rigid and the merits of a rigid constitution. Okay, but the fact that it was difficult to change is considered a demerit, because that is not good for a democratic system. And then it's also centralized the judiciary. We have talked about this point under the 1979 constitution. And then the constitution also made the federal government too powerful, more than the state government. Right, so that was also another disadvantage. And decision making by the government under this constitution was very, very slow, because you needed to consult a lot of parties before you could reach any decision. So these are the demerits of that 1999 constitution. So please go through this video, compare it with some of the things that you have in your notebooks, compare it with what you have in your textbooks to get clearer understanding. And if there are any questions, don't hesitate to ask. See you next time.